Event Center. My name is Roger Hertel. I'm one of the board members of the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame, and just really glad to have so many faces that we haven't seen for quite a while, some here. So it's just great to have everybody here tonight. A couple things about how everything's going to work this evening. We have a lot of people, of course, to honor tonight. That's our main purpose for being here. Just a couple things to keep the proceedings moving. We would like you to turn off your cell phones if you wouldn't mind doing that real quick. That'd be helpful. Tonight's proceedings, by the way, are being videoed. I want to thank Matt Moore, who is here tonight, who's going to take care of that for us. And these will be posted on our Hall of Fame website tomorrow, the entire proceedings. So if you want to sit back, rewind. I know last year we had a couple memorable moments from the evening, and we'll gladly have you check that out. Also, all evening long, drinks will be available over at the bar, so please make yourself at home here. If you need a drink, go get it. Restrooms are right here, so if you need to go there, again, please just, by all means, do whatever you need to do. A couple people we want to recognize before we get started tonight. Last year was, of course, our first induction, and it was a great night. If you missed it, it really was an awesome night. Have some of our first round of inductees, our first group to the Hall of Fame, are back with us tonight. I'd like to recognize them if they would please stand. Cindy Baxter. Cindy, where are you? Right here. Also back with us tonight, Super Bowl champ, Mr. Ralph Baker is here. And last year, our first team inducted was the Lewistown girls basketball team. Of course, it won back-to-back titles back in the day. And their head coach is with us again tonight, Mr. Kevin Kodesh. Where is Kevin? I'd also like to introduce one more person real quick to just stand and be recognized, and that is the guy. A couple people come up to me who weren't here last year, and they said, you know, whose idea was it to get this going again and get a Hall of Fame underway? And while there were a bunch of people involved, and I was not involved in the initial start of it, I know they tried for years and years and years. And after our first year, our president from a year ago decided to step down. He's at the point in his life that he's got grandkids and trips to the beach and all that fun stuff. Still very actively involved, though, in our voting, in our board, and everything that we do. And without him, I really don't know if this would have got underway. So our retired president from a year ago, Mr. John Zimmerman, would you stand up for us? President and now our new president, who I must say keeps us straight. It's good to have an attorney on board because he, you know, when we forget to cross T's and dot I's, Timmy keeps us going. Please welcome the president of our Hall of Fame, Mr. Tim Sear.
Usually people stand up when I'm introduced, they usually don't applaud them. But that's been a while. Welcome. It's around 5 o'clock, so I didn't check with my social director. I don't know if I should say good afternoon or good evening, so I'm just going to say hello and welcome, and thank you so much for being here for our second of what we hope will be many induction ceremonies to the Mifflin County Hall of Fame. And certainly, as you can imagine, it takes some effort to put together an event like this, and we have a board of directors that, you know, steps to the forefront every time we need something. And I'd just like to recognize those men and women as well. Brian Heckert, our vice president, is here. Sheriff Harpster, our secretary, Tony Williams, treasurer, and our board members. Dave Sendler, Roger Herto's MC tonight, Joel Diamond, Kevin Kodesh, and John Zimmerman. Those people work tirelessly to bring this
Tona.
about.
Tona.
I said Tony Williams, our treasurer, didn't I? If I did, I'm sorry, Tona. She had me sign a check. There are two guests here that I really want to take just a moment to recognize. When we got started with this back in 200 or 2020, and then got delayed by COVID, Anytime we had questions about, what do your bylaws say, how do you nominate people, how do you vote, what do you do at your banquet, all those type of things. There were two guys that were very unselfish in giving of their time, and they're here tonight as guests of the Hall of Fame. The president of the Huntington County Sports Hall of Fame, Keith Black, and Larry Newton from Huntington. They've been doing this for 25 years, and I want to thank them for helping us out and getting started here. Just for our inductees, as you know, we have an outstanding team that the board is recognizing this year, and certainly welcome Coach Wirtz and the players from that 1963 championship team. And we're also really happy that we're going to be giving out our first member volunteer recognition award. That will be presented later on in the program. And for the second year in a row, I think we've sort of hit a home run with our speaker. Our future, I think, a future first ballot Hall of Famer here when he becomes eligible in 2025. He'll be out of the competitive nature at that point for 3 years. But Hayden Hidley's athletic accomplishments are well known. They're in the program. I'm not going to repeat those. But I think just as important to his athletic accomplishments was the manner in which he's conducted himself, both in good times and in those few times when disappointment prevailed. He certainly has brought recognition on a national basis to himself, with great pride to his family, his high school, his university, and to Mifflin County. We're just pleased as we can be to have him here tonight. If you get a chance to talk to Hayden, and you know him over years, you know he's a competitor. And like most successful athletic competitors, very much aware that someday, somewhere, there'll be another competitor who's going to come along and challenge those records and accomplishments. And for Hayden, as many of you know, that challenge could come from within his own family. So we're very fortunate that his sister Lydia Hidley could be here tonight. And somebody said there's a brother too, but I don't have a lot of information on him. As you can imagine, it is a difficult task to choose 5 inductees from a large pool of candidates. And I want to thank our selection committee. We have a mix of some board members and some general members of our membership. And they start with a list of 50 or more names. And somehow we come up with 14 that we put on a ballot to mail out to everybody. And that certainly is not an easy task. But the real thank you, I think, should go out to our membership. This is the second year, and in both years, we've had nearly 90% of our membership take the time to fill out that ballot so that we come to this evening where we have our inductees. To give you an idea how we arrive at such an outstanding class, and as I said, it is hard. There was a member during the balloting process that, and I don't want to mention any names and embarrass anybody, but a person called me aside up the golf course and he says, "Tim, this is really hard." I said, "What do you mean, Ralph?" He said, "It is really hard. You got too many good people on here. How are we supposed to just vote for 5? So I think when you have a Super Bowl Hall of Fame champion like Ralph Baker who says it's hard to do, I think take him at his word. This year was very close. Our balloting was very close. The narrowness from top to bottom was closer actually than it was last year. In fact, we intended to have 6 inductees. It was that close. We had a couple ties and the narrowness, as I said. But Krista Gingrich couldn't be here tonight. She has a young child who's heading off to school tomorrow for the first time, so it's understandable why she can't be here. And she very graciously has agreed to defer her induction to the next time we get together. So we have an outstanding class of inductees. All that's left is for the rest of us to sit back and enjoy the evening, and thank you all for coming.
Tim. Time now to introduce our guest speaker. And you guys all know Hayden a different way. I was his teacher, okay, in media class for a little bit. And I still remember the young kid who every morning would sign on the air at MCTV and look right into the camera and say, "Good morning, friends," every day. Hayden had a smile on his face. He was very polished at what he did. He was an easy choice to pick to be in front of the mic. And I used to joke with him and say, "Hey, you know, someday you're going to have to give a big speech somewhere, and this is going to pay off." Right? Well, obviously, if you saw Hayden speak at all during his career, what a tremendous role model. What a tremendous ambassador for our high school, for our community. To me, you know, he left a young boy and he's come back a man. And I mean a big time man. 5-time NCAA All-American. Please welcome Mr. Hayden Gingrich.
Thank you, everyone, for the warm welcoming. Actually, I didn't get nervous until Mr. Hurto kind of talked about our old high school days. I look around in the crowd, I see Ms. Williams, Mr. Gill, Mr. Hurto, some of my former educators, and I couldn't help but think, am I getting graded on this? Today is an important night. Sports has a way of giving us all kind of clarity and showing us how strong that we can be. A lot has been mentioned about kind of my NCAA performances and things like that, but at the end of the day, I think it helps you become a strong person, and nothing quite like sports helps you give you that. Even this year at the NCAA tournament, my dreams of becoming an NCAA champion were crushed on Friday night in the semifinals, and 12 hours later, you got to find a way to weigh in and still compete in the consolation bracket. And I think over 18 years of competing and being a wrestler, it just kind of gave me a lot of pride, and I was honored to be able to compete for one more day. I think that kind of leads into what I want to talk about tonight, and I have a very fresh perspective of what it is like to be an athlete. Tonight we're surrounded by elite athletes and an elite coach, and I would like just to kind of go into what it takes to be a great athlete. There's a few set of skills that I've noticed being around elite athletes that they all sort of possess. The first, some people don't always like to admit it, but all the elite athletes have an innate talent that they just can't shake, and it puts them at the level where they can work hard and then they can add in the intangibles and they become great. I don't look at that as something that's luck. I look at that as something elite athletes know they have the talent and they know that they don't want to waste it. So that in itself is actually a very good skill. The second thing that elite athletes have is this desire to work hard and outwork all their competition. It takes that level of hard work where people start to question your sanity almost. When I was in high school, I remember going to workouts and traveling an hour and going to these club workouts, and my parents driving me all around, and a lot of times people are like, "Are you afraid that you'll get burned out? Are you afraid that maybe you're doing too much?" And to me, it was just a normal thing to do. I think a lot of elite athletes feel like that. Maybe it feels like they're on an island sometimes, but maybe sometimes people questioning their sanity is what brings them to the top. Lastly, they're able to be uncomfortable in going further than anybody before them has. Tonight, we are going to celebrate and hear the stories of athletes who are willing to go further than anyone that came before them. I like to call these kind of people island athletes, where they go further and they're willing to be in a frame where nobody else has been before, and where people look at them and say, look how far they went. How are they able to do that when nobody before them was able to do it? And it's just a skill that they are able to have, being comfortable going further where nobody's gone before. Tonight we honor all those who are inducted in Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame, those who have left their mark on Mifflin County sports history. Being in this Hall of Fame is not just a celebration of a lifetime of hard work and achievement. It sets the standard for how far you can go. All of those being inducted tonight are setting a standard for younger people like me to try to reach for. And the people that are growing up that are 6 years old or in middle school are able to look at these stories and think, somebody from Mifflin County was able to go this far, why can't I? Everybody that's being inducted tonight should never underestimate the power of setting a standard for others to look up to. I remember growing up, the Lewistown wrestling team used to run up our hill outside of our house on Strawberry Lane. And for those that have never been there, it's probably one of the most torturous places that you can work out. And I remember the coaches would, after practice, send their guys up and they would run up and down. And me and my younger brother, we were probably 8 and 10 years old at the time. We would watch them, and my dad would kind of push us out there to go work out with the team. And none of those guys knew that at the moment, but them accepting us and letting us train with them, and them setting an example to push us. It's a very underestimating thing as you're an athlete, but it means the world to people like me. So whenever you are getting inducted tonight, never underestimate the power of setting a standard for others to follow. In a county where everyone seems to know everything about everybody else, your name carries a story that no movie or podcast can ever tell. Tonight we're about to hear the stories of great athletes, and your name is etched into the history of Mifflin County sports. If you don't believe that, just go to the Lewistown Country Club and watch me swing a golf club. It seems like people pop out of the bushes and are like, is that really somebody who's related to Ken and Mark Hidley? Your names carry a story that no movie or podcast can tell. You should be very proud of that. So tonight we celebrate an accomplished group whose names are cemented in the history of MC Sports Hall of Fame. I want to just say congratulations again, and thank you for having me out here to speak. I can't wait to hear the stories of how the elite athletes and coaches were able to set the bar and raise the standard for Mifflin County sports. And my closing remarks is be proud of how far you've come, and you've brought a lot of honor and tradition to Mifflin County sports. And people who are growing up will see that, and they'll see the standards that you've set and try to outdo them. For me, I always wanted to set a standard so that my younger brother could break them. It seems like younger brothers have a really kind of innate way of doing that. But by doing what you've accomplished and setting yourself as a great role model, the younger generation of athletes in Mifflin County will be able to see the accomplishments and see the way that you conducted yourselves and try to push past those barriers. But again, I'm really looking forward to hearing the stories tonight, and thank you all so much for having me out there.
Thank you, Hayden. By the way, we have an envelope for you. It's not a grade. I think you'll want it, so make sure you get that before you leave tonight. So we're to the point where we're going to start with our inductees. We'll be going in alphabetical order to do this. If you were not here last year, I just want to go over exactly what will take place. For each of our inductees, we put together a short video, 1.5 to 2 minutes for each one of those people. We'll play it first. Then I'll come up and introduce their presenter, who will come forward and offer them for induction into the hall, and then they'll have a few words to say. So, without any further ado, Doug Bear, by the way, is the guy working everything for us tonight. Doug, are we just about ready? Okay. Our first inductee. I could tell you a lot of stories about this lady, but I can't, if you know what I mean. Just as Hayden said, competitor, want to win, at any cost, yeah. That was this lady. So again, sit back. Wendy Booher is our first inductee.
Back in 1986, Chief Logan High School graduated one of the best athletes in school history. Most people remember Wendy Booher as a basketball player, and rightfully so. She was way ahead of her time in the sport of basketball. She was a coach on the floor, a general with the ball in her hands, and a threat to score from anywhere on the court. However, Boo was much more than just a baller. She was a three-sport standout for the Mingos in basketball, cross country, and track and field. Her success led to all-state recognition in each sport. While individually medaling 4 years in cross country, she led Mingo teams to the podium 4 times, including a state championship her senior year in 1986. Back on the court, she surpassed the 2,000-point scoring milestone. And this was back before girls basketball had a three-point line, and she also played with the larger-sized boys ball in the day. This still didn't stop her from tossing in a county-high 56 points in a single game, still a Mifflin County record. A basketball scholarship to Division I Temple would follow, where she was a 3-year starting point guard for the Lady Owls. Wendy would go on to play professionally overseas and coach at both the high school and college level. Like I said, she was way ahead of her time. But tonight, her time has come, as the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame welcomes Wendy Booher.
I know there's always a story of some kind, too, between the presenter, because I know that that's got to be a nice honor to be asked by the inductee to present you. I'm curious about this one, because I'm really trying to figure out how this all goes together, but I'm sure we're going to find out. Please welcome our presenter and our host at the event this evening, Mr. John Panizzo.
Wow, I get to follow Higgin Highly. That's tough. The only thing tougher was Aaron Gingrich following me. Hey, round of applause to Hayden Highly. Tremendous family, 4 kids. 10 Highly. We all have 4. We'd be proud of you guys. I'd like to thank everyone here. I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee, because Wendy and I talked on the phone and we were just talking about all this, and one of the things that came out was the selection committee. It doesn't matter when you get in, it just means that you're among greatness. And we both felt that way. And I think the committee the last 2 years did a tremendous job. And this day is today here with Joey Heller and Mr. Gingrich, Mr. Powell, and Wendy, Coach Sprecker, and the rest of our team. That's just tremendous grouping. So a round of applause to the Hall of Fame committee. I want to thank Wendy Booher for asking me to be up here. She fulfilled one of my dreams, because she seen me play basketball and knew there was no chance I was ever going to make this stage. So thank you, Wendy. When the votes came in and I saw that she won, I was so excited. And I was saying all day in my office, God, I hope she calls me. I want to do this speech for her. I want to bring the house down for her. And there's a reason behind it. I mean, we really go way back. And a couple people said, hey, what's the connection between you guys? And I figured if a couple are asking, there's a lot that I haven't asked. So I'm going to go through it with you. It started my freshman year, her sophomore year. I went to a basketball game, and I knew the Boers really well. And I was sitting next to Keith Booher, and he was working the video camera, and I'm like, great, that's another thing he doesn't know how to do. So I said, Keith, here, let me do that for you. And I ended up videotaping probably 90% of her games. Her sophomore, junior, senior year, I would travel with Keith to the away games. When Keith couldn't take me, Jan took me a few times until I was old enough to drive myself to the away games, and I videotaped that collection for the Booher family, which they used in their personal lives. So I was blessed I was able to do that for them. So I seen her play a lot. Then I went to countless trips to Temple. When I was in college, I would go and meet up with her dad in Harrisburg, and we would drive to Temple for years and watch her play and compete at that high level. And then if anybody knows Ed Bolick, I had to do 6 hours in a car with Ed Bolick. So if that doesn't tell you I love Wendy Booher, nothing tells you. And Bill Corbin, you know what I'm talking about in the car with Ed Bolick. So, and the last thing is, and I spent an hour and 15 minutes looking for this. I knew I had it, and I wanted to do Wendy a big gift. Like, what a way to honor her with this gift. And I rummaged through boxes and boxes, and I finally found it, and I shipped it to Roger, and I shipped it to Doug. Doug Bear, this is my gift to you, Wendy. Here you go. So, I was, I think, senior dinner dance, and she had to drive, so she picked me up in her Jeep, said 2M on their license plate for 2000, and we went to that night. We had a great night, and she's an incredible person, and we just love her to death. But I don't know of any other athlete that I witnessed. I mean, I've heard stories of, Dick Gingrich and Mr. Gingrich and Mr. Powell, how they were competitors, and they were. But I lived this. There was no other athlete for me like Wendy. And when you think of words that can describe Wendy, there were a lot of them, and two of them are competitive and athletic. And we read the whole book. She played 3 sports year-round: cross country, basketball, and track, at the highest level, at the state level. And we know she scored 2,000 points and no 3-point line, and half her career with the men's ball. And they didn't keep track of all the rebounds that she would go in there and fight for, and all the other work that she had to do, because she did not want to lose. I remember, according to PAHoops.org, if you go to that website, it keeps a great list. Krista's on the list. She's really high up on the list, point totals. But at the end of 1987, she was ranked 22nd all time in history of PA of highest scores. And that's an accomplishment. She went D1 to Temple, we know, went to play professionally. There's another side. She was also all-state in cross country, top 20 runner in the state. To put that in perspective, that would be like finishing in a Sweet 16 in basketball. It was just a select group to be all-state. All-state, the 2-mile and track, and of course she was a state champ. I'm sure she wanted to play field hockey, softball, and even wrestled. She'd still be up here, because no one was ever going to beat her. And when you hear the experts talk about the GOATs, the greatest of all time, whatever sport it is, it could be Jordan or Brady or whoever, they talk about how competitive that person is and how winning is everything, just like Hayden touched on. No matter what it was, she had to win, and that was Wendy. And she has an incredible smile. It's incredible, and she gets that from her mom, Jan, and she has a sense of humor. She gets that from her dad. But when it was inside the lines, and when that whistle blew, she was going to beat you. And I don't know of any other Booher like that. She was amazing like that. She could just turn it on. Here's a story I'll never forget. Jeff Miller might remember this. Sprecker will remember this. Danny Hughes might remember this. We're at a race at Kish High School. She's being pushed. Strategy in cross country. Sometimes they send a sacrificial lamb to push you to a point where you break, so all their good runners will pass you. And they were pushing her and pushing her and pushing her. And she refused to quit. She gets behind the grandstand. She stops. She vomits. She vomits. Yep. Wipes her chin off, comes back and wins the race. That, true story. That happened out of Kish. That's how she was. Tough and gritty, and that's what that was, and those are other words that describe her. She didn't back down to anybody. Coaches in basketball would do anything, scheme against her. Kevin Kodesh had hair until she started playing. I remember he used to go like this. He'd throw everybody at her. Danielle Ferris, whoever, double team her, trap her at half court. He couldn't. She'd go underneath. She'd box anybody out. Yeah, she was an athlete. Cross country and track teams would try to box her in because they knew if they could box her in, they could slow her up. It would give their runners a chance to get out. That didn't stop her. Here's another story. Her competitiveness is one of my favorites. It was the first game her senior year. I think we were playing Central. I was videotaping it. It was at home court at Chief Logan Mingo's. lining up for the tip, and Central ran this great opening tip play, tipped it to the wing, backdoor cutter, hit the pass, Central scored up 2-0 just like that. She was so pissed. She ran all the way down to the end line, clapped her, this is her, and gave her the ball. She dribbles up to the logo and fires it up, hits 2. Just shocked everybody. That's how competitive she was. And they scored back and won that game. I mean, it just one play like that just triggered. And great athletes do that, and that's how she was. It just took something to trigger that for her. Wendy challenged herself at everything. All the greats want to be challenged. She was incredibly driven to be the best. There's a misconception out there that she ran just to stay in shape for basketball. That is not true. She ran because she loved running, and she loved running for Coach Spratt. We all loved running for Coach Spratt. He knew he had someone special. He knew he could fuel that competitiveness in her, and she craved it. She ran to challenge herself. Her biggest competitor was always herself, Wendy Booher. She was a leader, that's another term. She was a consummate leader. She led by example. We'd have optional 5:30 workouts. She'd show up. Always, all the great basketball players. She would stay in the gyms, keep shooting. Teammates would run through a wall for her because she was already running it through for them. She left every ounce of her on the track and on the court. I don't remember one track cross-country event where she came off and she had an ounce left to give. I don't remember that. But the word that really describes her, in my opinion, is pioneer. She played before travel ball, summer camps, individualized personal coach. Listen to this. I got a kid in Babe Ruth. He's 13. He has a pitching coach, a catching coach, a hitting coach. And then he plays on 3 travel teams already. I mean, that's the way the world is now. She played before all that. She broke gender boundaries. Girls weren't supposed to play with the men. She would go to the Y and play against the men's team. I mean, that's how Cindy Baxter, I mean, she talked about it last year. She took it to a team level. She would just go, she found one man, she would find 5. Let's go play hoops. And that would push her. We have a great history of successful girls basketball in Mifflin County. That started with Wendy Booher. She laid the foundation of what it was going to take, like Hayden said. She showed girls that to be the best, you have to challenge yourself. She showed that women can play with anyone. And with that, I want to introduce you to an athlete, to a leader, to a pioneer, to a woman that scored 2,000 points, that started 4 years at Temple, that played professional ball overseas, all state in track and cross country, and a state champ. Wendy Booher, you deserve this.
Trying to move so I could see you.
I think I played against you at the Y.
But I stopped it.
Probably did. Then I got pissed off. Like John said. But this is a huge honor. And Mr. Zimmerman, thank you for bringing this up and to life and everything. It's truly a great honor because when you leave a town small like ours, you never expect something like this to happen, and it's a big deal. And you know, my neighbors down in Boiling Springs where I live, what are you doing Sunday? Well, I got to go to my hometown and for the Hall of Fame. You know, so it's a big deal, and it's nerve-wracking for me to speak to everybody, but I have ties, I think, throughout the room. The Heidels. My first principal, Mr. Heidel. play against Mark. Sorry, Mark. You probably didn't hurt. The Gingriches, you know, I think I played when you were at lunch or something at the YMCA, Mr. Gingrich. But what a true honor this is. And Roger and Kevin, I know I had daggers when we were playing each other in the gyms, but you know, then I got to coach against you. I have a story on Roger, yeah, who hired me as his JV coach. It was a setup from the start. We played Tyrone, the biggest rivalry out there for Indian Valley and Tyrone. And first game of the season, he calls me. I can't make it, Bill. I just had surgery. I'm like, what? You'll be okay, you'll be okay. Yeah. Well, we were losing at halftime, and then I got pissed off. That's the thing. I went into the locker room and kicked some garbage cans and stuff. I felt like Bobby Knight for a minute. But the ladies on the team, they came out and they ended up winning the game. So we called Roger right away before we left, let him know that we won the game. And I think Leah was on the team at the time, Mr. Tina. So she probably heard a few choice words too soon from me. But then also in the room is Spreck. Spreck, he was my coach that just knew how to get competitiveness out of you. He, you know, we've got sayings. No pain, no gain. Well, there was pain, and I don't know how much gain. And no guts, no glory. And we lived by that every day of practice. So, Spreck, thank you for all the years as well. And his wife, because Chris, she fed us. We would go over for dinner, especially before state meets. So we had a great meal for that. And their daughter, Meredith, who, she was like my little sister growing up, you know, so I had a great time with that family as well. And then my family, who traveled many, many miles and through many 4 tires, you know, being worn out from traveling to Temple and all over, and Penn State, who I have somebody else in the room who is related to me and being honored tonight too. Do you know that? Oh, see? Got all kinds of tricks up my sleeve. No, my uncle, you all probably know him as Jimmy Allgaier, who made the winning shot for the Rothrock team at the state championship. So he's an avid Penn State fan. Well, we just didn't talk about that at Thanksgiving. But, you know, the reason that I went into sports is from my brother, because he's 14 months older than me, and I followed him around. I was probably like the biggest pain for him. And I remember years and years ago, I sat in his dugout. He was playing Pony League, I think. And the umpire, and it probably was you, Mr. Sear. No, I'm only kidding. Made me get out of the dugout because I was a girl, and I had to go sit with my mom while my brother played. The game would not go on. Well, let me just tell you, about 4 years old, I learned what pissed off was. I spurted up that hill, sat with my mom, just mattered than get it out. But again, huge honor. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bargos and the mayor and Tom Fletcher, my only Temple alum in the room. Thanks for coming, and thank you for this huge honor. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Wendy. Next on our list, again, we're going in alphabetical order. Wendy referred to Dick a couple different times during her speech. Dick Gingrich is next on our list. And when we were discussing names at the table, people were voting, I just remember one word kept coming up all the time when people were talking about Mr. Gingrich. And I was too young to be around when Dick was doing his thing at Chief Logan, and when he was at Penn State, I was just a real little lad. But I heard everybody mention the same word all the time: tough. Dick was tough. You did not want to mess with him. I have two words for Dick that I've come to say about Dick over the years, because he, as you know, has been a big part of basketball in the community, and I coached for a few years there as well. But those two words are respect and admiration. When you're around this guy and you see how he works with young people, his commitment to things, just top shelf, totally top shelf. Again, a quick video here. Our next inductee, Dick Gingrich.
A four-sport letter winner at Chief Logan High School, Dick Gingrich is probably best remembered for quarterbacking teams that won 28 of 30 games over the 1959, 1960, and 1961 seasons for the Green and White. Included in that record were 2 undefeated seasons and a 22-game winning streak. He was both a UPI and an AP third-team All-State selection. As a member of the West in the 1962 Big 33 Football Classic, he played both defensive back and quarterback as his team dominated the East 39-0. In addition to football, Dick was a basketball standout on the hardwood and was Chief Logan's leading basketball scorer at the time of his graduation. Gingrich then went over the mountain to be a Nittany Lion for head coach Rip Engel. In an article from the Penn Stater magazine from 1965, Engel said of Gingrich, "He's the captain of our defense, and there's no better safety in the nation." Assistant coach Frank Patrick added, "Dick is tough, alert, quick, durable, and gets to the ball. He's an extremely intelligent football player. He knows what he wants to do, and he does it well." End quote. After his playing days, he stayed on as a graduate assistant under new head coach Joe Paterno. Gingrich was later offered a full-time position on the staff, but decided to go to law school instead. From the time his playing days ended, Dick has given countless hours helping boys and girls basketball players throughout the county to develop their game. His focus on the fundamentals and details of the game are unmatched. The Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame is proud to welcome Dick Gingrich.
And here we have this happening twice tonight, which I think is really nice. We have sons and daughters here to welcome in their parents. Please welcome Dick's son, Mr. Aaron Gingrich.
Thank you, Roger. And Tim, no, things haven't changed. Litigants don't clap when I am. So don't feel scared. Well, I can think of no better venue for the next inductee, my dad, Dick Gingrich, than Birch Hill, considering that my dad grew up a mere 200 or 300 yards from here at the end of 8th Avenue. And as told by my dad and my grandparents, this area was known for many of the Burnham kids getting together and playing all sorts of sports, whether it be between 7th and 8th Avenue, when most of those houses weren't even built yet, or here on the old Birch Hill Country Club grounds. My grandmother also told me some stories about how when boys would be playing, on a regular basis, 1 or 2 would come running back to their house crying that Dick was throwing one of his fits, as she called it, and had chased most of the kids up trees to avoid coming down and meeting the wrath of Dick at the bottom. So my grandmother would have to, as she called it, take a big switch and go find Dick and shoo him home so that the kids could scurry down the trees to safety. But anyway, I think we all can agree, and I think Hayden touched on it, and Johnny and Wendy, that success in life and in sports is not an accident. Sure, it takes talent and ability, but really the characteristics of hard work and toughness are cornerstones of successful people. As far as toughness, well, if you've ever played with or against my father, you happen to be a receiver coming across the middle when you played Chief Logan or Penn State when he was sitting at safety, or if you were one of those aforementioned Burnham kids who are probably still traumatized, I think we can check the box about toughness for my dad. But it's really the hard work that I've witnessed over the past 50 years and beyond that, before that, that really is the characteristic of my father. Whether it was brutal workouts over in the Burnham Jamboree fields in the summer in advance of an upcoming football season, whether it has been mentioned, the countless hours of working with local high school boys and girls basketball players over the years, or the 60 plus hours a week of work that he's done and actually is still doing as a well-respected and accomplished attorney in the area. I think that's the attributes of my father that I'll take with me and I think everybody can admire. So with that, I would like to present and introduce my father, Dick Gingrich.
I hate to treat you like mushrooms. You know, they always say about mushrooms, you keep them in the dark and leave them along the door. I certainly get that feeling. This is an honor for me to stand here this evening in front of you, being an honoree of the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame. It ranks right up there with, when I looked at the picture and I thought, it ranks right up there with Penn State retiring my number. A few of you guys like heck, but maybe they can explain it to you. My number was up 22, and also was worn by John Capilet. I was told that there's a limitation on time, and I thought, well, if Roger's talking before me, and then Aaron stands here and talks in front of me, I thought, I really have no time left. And then Johnny Panizzo comes up here, and it's all over. I would like to, Aaron mentioned about growing up at the upper end of 8th Avenue here in Burnham. I would like to mention my parents, a coach's dream. They never talked to a coach. Never talked to a coach. Of course, there wasn't social media. There was never a complaint. In fact, didn't even go to all my games. Not that they weren't interested, but that's the way it was. Also, I would like to bring up that about my parents, they had 7 grandchildren. 4 of those grandchildren played collegiate sports. 3 at the Division I level. Krista, of course, played at Duke. I have a niece who played on the U.S. national team in soccer. So there must have been an athletic gene there someplace. They never played sports in their life. Went to see some of them. However, there were 4 collegiate players out of the 7. I'd like to mention my wife Joanne also. There aren't many girls out there today who would be willing to run across the field holding up a peach basket and be firing passes at it. Never complained. I was very fortunate when I was at Chief Logan. There were a lot of good athletes in the area, and I think that attracts a lot of attention. We had the Junior Powell, Ralph Baker, Jack Sear from Lewistown. They went 2 seasons undefeated, drew a lot of attention. We come along when we're a junior, we're undefeated. We're also undefeated as a senior. That drew a lot of attention to our area. We overlook a lot of times, though, I think, there were a lot of good players back at that time who never went on to play college ball. But they were tremendous football players. We had, I know on our team, we had John Zarkovich, Bill Couple, Dave Treaster, kids who never went on to play. But then there were those who went on to play. I feel very fortunate that in our backfield, when I was a senior, we had 3 Division I players. We had Don DeArmond. I don't know if Don's here tonight or not. We had Don DeArmond. He was a starter at North Carolina State as a running back. We had Gary Rao. That name you should ring a bell for a lot of people. He was a starter at North Carolina State. John Wansel was on our team. John Wansel went to Shippensburg, played there. John was their most valuable player his senior year. Jim Logan went to Mansfield, was their most valuable player in football 2 years in a row, and then also is in their Sports Hall of Fame at Mansfield. So I was very lucky and fortunate to have a lot of other good athletes around the same time, and I think that helps tremendously in getting recognition and going on to higher level. We also had a half-decent basketball team. My senior year, we only lost 1 league game, which was to West Snyder. Now, for you old timers here, you probably remember the coach down here at the time was a guy by the name of Gene Solomon. Gene Solomon would sit on the bench with a coat and tie on. I could never figure that out. But anyway, we went down and played West Snyder down there. We had in the high 20s for number of fouls. They had 1. Our coach, Steve Pursuit, was furious. The only comment I had for him, and we, at that time, we treated him, we called him by first name basis. I said, Steve, I said, the only consolation out of this whole thing is those officials actually missed quite a few of our fouls. Makes me think, I congratulate the Rothrock team. I would have been a senior the year before you won the title, and we played you twice. Now, I don't know how much you learned in the way of skills in basketball from us. I'll guarantee you were a lot tougher whenever you went on to play the next year, so I feel like I have a part of that. Then I went on to Penn State. I enjoyed my experience at Penn State. Made a lot of friendships, had a lot of great experiences. You have ups and downs. If you stop and think about it, at a university like Penn State, Junior would tell you, Ralph would tell you, you have about 100 athletes there, and about 30 play. So there's a lot of disappointed guys. What separates them? The mental attitude. Can you recover from adversity? You put out, everyone puts out, everyone's an athlete, but only 30 get to play in that area. Now, while at Penn State, some of the downsides I had, my senior year we were 5-5. And to me, that was a disappointment. We lost 3 games that year on the very last play of the game. We lost to Pitt, we lost to UCLA, and we lost to, who was the other? California. On the very last play of the game. We would have had an 8-2 record, we would have went to a major bowl. Didn't happen. That's certainly a disappointment. Another disappointment when I was a junior, at the end of the year, I felt, many people felt, we had one of the best teams in the country at that time. Unfortunately, Penn State allowed the players to vote whether they wanted to go to a game or not. We had an offer from a major bowl. The seniors got their heads together, talked to a few of the younger kids. The team voted not to go to the bowl. That was a disappointment for me. That is the last time that I'm aware that Penn State ever left a player to vote. They let them vote where to go to, but never whether to go. Some of the highlights, of course, when we played Ohio State, whenever I was a junior, we went out to Ohio State. We were around 5-5 with 1 game under 500. They were number 2 in the country, undefeated, and we thumped them. It ended up where they didn't cross the 50-yard line until probably late in the game. I played East West Shrine game, enjoyed that. We had a couple interceptions out there. But like I said, overall the experience was great. I appreciated Hayden's speech. Winning is everything. Winning is everything. Now, do you think I would be here today if we would have went 0-11 my senior year to Chief Logan? I wouldn't have been here. So when you hear people say there's more to sports than just winning and losing, like the old saying is, we'll show you a loser. Now, maybe you can kind of change that a little, where you're saying winning includes everything. Winning includes the dedication, the running up the hill as Wendy did. That's what winning includes everything, and it becomes everything. I appreciate being here tonight. Congratulate all the honorees. It makes me feel good. I'm in the Mifflin County Hall of Fame, and the Growth Rock team. Like I said, I feel part of that. Played against you many times. But thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks, Dick. Next on our list, again, we did go in alphabetical order here. When these came out, I had one person, my neighbor, going across the yard. Hey, Berto! Yeah. It's about time. So what do you mean it's about time? He said, I see we finally have a wrestler going into this Hall of Fame. And personally, for myself, I have to tell you, going through high school, you're either a basketball player, if you're in sports in the winter, or you're a wrestler. And they do seem to cross very well. You're either on the court or you're on the wrestling mats. I have to admit this. Joe's a couple years older than me. I had never been to a wrestling match. Okay? And back in those days, I think some of the older folks would relate to this. Today all the kids are together because of social media. But back in the old days, Kish High School and Chief Logan High School might have been to us 60 miles away. We just didn't go associate with those kids. It was our little territory, and that was it. However, I kept hearing about this Heller kid from Chief Logan, and I must say here, that was the first wrestling match I ever attended. I went to Chief Logan to watch a wrestling match, got to experience Mingo fever and all the Mingo chants and that ugly green paint on that gym at Chief Logan. But it is about time. Our next inductee, again, a short video here, Mr. Joe Heller.
There is no question that the sport of wrestling has become a premier sport in Mifflin County, built on the sweat, hard work ethic, and commitment of those who have paved the way. One of those being Chief Logan's Joe Heller. Unable to compete in 1976 at the varsity level as a freshman because of his size, he would go on to compile a career record of 70-10 over the next 3 years. The crowds at the Mingo Gym knew they were watching something special, and his junior and senior season saw the tournament trail lead from Highland Park all the way to the old Hershey Park Arena. Heller became Mifflin County's first two-time PIAA state champion, taking the 98-pound weight class title in 1978 and the 105-pound gold medal in 1979. During those 2 seasons under head coach Charlie Rozelle, Joe went 55-1. For his efforts, the Amateur Wrestling News listed Joe as an honorable mention high school All-American. After graduating from the Mingo campus, Heller went on to earn 2 letters for the Cavaliers at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, where he received Atlantic Coast Conference honors. Joe is already a member of the District 6 and Central Pennsylvania Wrestling Conference Hall of Fames. Tonight, he adds another hall to his list as the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame is proud to welcome Joe Heller.
Here to present their father into the hall tonight, please welcome Joe's 3 children, Caitlin, Joseph, and Ethan Heller.
Mifflin County's first 2-time state champion in wrestling, and more importantly, our dad, Joe Heller, for his induction into the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame. First, on behalf of our entire family, we would like to say thank you to the committee for their time and effort in putting this event together. It has been something we've been looking forward to since the day our dad received the call, and he told us to keep it on the down low until the press do. Although we could stand up here and go over his stats, accolades, and accomplishments from wrestling, we're going to focus on the 3 characteristics that not only helped with his success in wrestling, but it's been instilled in us as his children for us to demonstrate in our daily lives. These top 3 characteristics are competitiveness, having high expectations, and resilience.
My dad's competitiveness is what stood out to me the most. Not just in sports, but in other areas of life. What I learned from my dad's competitiveness is to always give 100% in everything, but the hard work will always pay off in some way. I watched him carry his competitiveness into his life's work, and raising us as kids. I've always experienced this competitiveness firsthand when he was my soccer coach. My dad coached my U14 soccer team. Yes, you heard that right. It was a U14 soccer team. And during our one game halftime speech, we were winning, and he said, "Okay, you have them down. Now keep your foot down on their throats." This is pretty intense for a U14 soccer game. It showed me that you can be competitive at any age. Competitiveness really taught us to be the best that we can be, not just as athletes, but as a person. I would have never viewed competitiveness that way if it wasn't for my dad. I'm really proud to see him receive this reward, and he truly deserves it, not just for his wrestling achievements, but for always striving to be the best person he can be. He always turned lessons in sports into life lessons.
Like most have said so far today, to be the best, you have to work and complete tasks that most of the time go unseen. For wrestling, my dad would typically do an additional workout on his own after he would get home from practice. He'd eat some dinner, and then he'd go do a run, lift, something extra to become better. Once his wrestling career ended, that ability to work behind the scenes transpired into his professional life. My dad worked second shift while also taking a full course load of college classes and paying for his undergraduate degree. I've seen him drive endless miles, take numerous plane rides, and spend about every other week in hotels for his career to provide for us. While doing all this, he still managed to show up to every single one of our soccer games, cross country, and track meets. And he did this balancing act without ever complaining, and it seemed super flawless. Now that I'm an adult, I know that time management and that balance is a little bit more difficult than what goes seen. One of my personal memories of this examples of him having high expectations is that after a full day of work, my dad would typically take me to run hills to help me improve for cross country. He had this high expectation for me to become the best runner I could be, and he made sure that I learned to realize that I could always dig deeper to reach my goals. With these hills, he would start 100 meters in front of me, up a hill, very unfair, and we would do these hills until I would catch him. Most of the time it would end with me crying, and we would go home and my mom would not be super happy that I came home crying, but I would catch him eventually to stop. But it did make me better. It made me look at hills in a whole new way on the course, and it made me become a really good runner and be the best that I could be. For me, I've also learned this balancing act and having high expectations for myself. When I have a difficult day professionally, my dad's my first call, and he always tells me that I have the power to change my circumstance. If I'm unhappy, I can set a new expectation and I can go and get it. Whether it's in my career as a teacher or high school coach, I'm constantly striving to be better. I try to be better because of the role model that my dad was to me. He constantly worked towards improvement, being the best dad, husband, and person that he could be for us. He's a champion both on and off the mat, and I try to embody his desire for high expectations every day.
Well, I'm the middle child here, so needless to say, as a teenager, I put my dad through some paces back. First and foremost, just want to say it's an honor to be here on behalf of my father. Like I said, looking back, I thought about this a lot over the last couple of weeks. I definitely put him through some paces back in the day. But the biggest takeaway that I could take away from my father was his resilience, whether it be on the mat or in his professional and personal life. A couple of years ago, well, actually more than that, when I was thinking about not returning to college, me and my dad had a chat, and he told me that if I decided to quit, that I would have this burning hole in my stomach forever. And I like to think that that's how he was on the wrestling mat. He was going to leave it all out there at all costs. I'm not saying that getting your bachelor's degree is, that's not the reason I'm so happy for that accomplishment, but it was a real life example of really what resilience can do and when you don't quit. I really can't express my appreciation enough for my dad and instilling this in me and my siblings and probably a lot of other people in this room that he's touched along the way. It's something that I'll always carry with me, and I'm extremely proud of my father's accomplishments and strive to be as good of a man, husband, and father as he is.
Although our father, Joe Heller, is being honored tonight for his athletic accomplishments, we hope that you take away from this speech just how phenomenal of a person he has been outside of the wrestling room. One of the greatest gifts in life is to inspire others to be their best, and our dad has done that for us throughout our entire lives. Now you've heard from us enough, let's bring the man up onto the stage. It's our privilege to introduce Joe Heller.
Well, I didn't pay them much to say that. I'd like to talk a little bit tonight by starting out thanking some folks. First, I really want to say thank you to the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame, its members and its board members, for putting this all together. It means a great deal. And the older I get, the more it means. I also want a special thanks to Roger Hurto for the beautiful video, and Tim Sear for taking the time to walk me through the process. Next up, I want to thank my kids. You did a phenomenal job. Just be yourselves. Lastly, about halfway through the thank you list, I guess, I want to thank my sister Chris and her husband Joe, my brother Tom and his wife Sherry, for coming out and really being here. I really appreciate that. And I guess here's kind of a little bit of the story. I want to thank my mom. I don't know how many of you know this, probably nobody. My mom has never seen me wrestle. Not once. She's been in every bathroom across the entire state of Pennsylvania and the East Coast since I was a kid. She never watched a match, and she always went and set them out in the bathroom. After I won a state title, I had to go to the women's room. That's where we went. That's a fact. I want to thank my dad. My dad is an unbelievable uncoach. He never told me to do anything. He never said, look at this, do that, execute this, work harder, do that. All my dad ever told me was, did you see so-and-so execute that move? Or did you see Ronnie Royer execute a good single leg? Maybe just think about that stuff. And I learned a lot from those suggestions from my dad. So, I guess the first point of my speech is, without you all being here, this celebration would not be complete to me. My wrestling story, I want to speak about for a few minutes, is just my take on my journey. It's not a history, it's not anything great. It's just my perception and my take on my journey. And I'm going to take you back a little bit. My story started with a wrestler before me from Yagertown. His name was Rod Tate. They lived in Yagertown, we lived in Yagertown, we were all brawlers from Yagertown. And Rod Tate would spend a minute with me here and there. My sister wrote me a really, really beautiful letter about the relationship that existed between Rod Tate, the Tate family, and us. And I asked her, even unscripted, to please share that letter with you folks, because I think it's really cool. I hope you enjoy it. Chris?
Most of you probably didn't know you had a sister. It was the first night I saw a grown man weeping heavily, sitting in a chair in our living room. His wife and many others from our neighborhood surrounding him as he let it go. I don't think I truly understood the depth of both his pain and joy until many years later. His name was Lee Tate. Lee, his wife Doreen, and their children, Mike, Rodney, Andy, and Andrea, all lived very close to us. I have many memories of being in and out of their home and them being in and out of ours. Carefree, happy memories, running the alleys, kish pole, and Rod often grabbing onto Joe, and a wrestling match would ensue. In the living room, in the alley, in the yard, at the pole. Rod was a grappler, and so was Joe. I was young during these times, 6, 7, 8 years old. Joe, 11, 12, 13, but he already had established himself in the wrestling world. Rod was 9 years older than Joe. In my eyes, he was a grown-up. Oftentimes, a kid trapped in a grown-up's body. I was too young to understand the significance of Rod winning a PA State Championship. Joe was not. More than once after the impromptu wrestling matches between Rod and Joe, Rod would say, "You're going to be the next state champ." Fast forward 1977, Rod now 23, Joe 14, and a sophomore Chief Logan. January 30th. It's always been a special day for both Joe and I as we share a birthday. We're twins, 4 and 5 years apart. Although, my mother has reminded me 56 times that he would have much rather had a baby mom than a baby sister. Be that as it may, he got a baby sister. With the age difference of 5 years, we really didn't share celebrations. January 30th, 1977 was really no different. It was a normal birthday. Joe turned 15 and I 10, and after dinner, he was out with friends, and I was at home when the phone rang. I ran to grab it off the kitchen wall, and it was my dad, and he said, "I need to talk to your mom." When she got off the phone, she stood still for a while, and time also stood still. I couldn't wrap my 10-year-old mind around what she had just told me. Rod is gone. He died in an accidental fire. There were more phone calls and people in and out of the house. Everyone was in shock. When I went to bed that night, all I could think of was, Rod, how could it be? Not on my birthday. Not on Joe's birthday. How could he have passed on January 30th? Joe and I had never really spoken about the impact of Rod's life and death on him and his decision to, his dedication to the sport that they both loved. But I know it hurt. It hurt, and at the same time triggered deeper dedication to wrestling. A dedication, or really a devotion, to making Rod's prediction come true. 15 months after Rod's death, Joe was standing on that platform, holding his gold medal, smiling that smile that Ray Wilde once wrote, the smile that could melt a snowbank. The rest of that day was a whirlwind. All of Gingrich had been listening to the match, and before we got home, the party had already started. Our house was covered in sheep loading, green and white, our kitchen was full of food, and the Yagertown Fire Company was already waiting for Joe's return. Yagertown was bringing home their second PA State champ, and they were prepared to let everyone know. The fire truck and car parade that happened that night in March of 1978 set the bar for every champion that would follow my brother Joe. Eventually things calmed down just a little bit and everyone relocated to our house. There were toasts and congratulatory claps on the back, and there was talk of futures and memories and things being planned. I remember when the back door opened. Most people would have that night and did come through the front door. The Tates were backdoor neighbors. Lee and Doreen came through the back door and made their way to the living room, where Joe was. They hugged him and my parents and even hugged me. Then Lee sat down and began to weep. Doreen, my dad, and many other younger towners surrounded Lee, and he was safe in his grief, in the memories of his son who was gone way too soon, and in his joy and pride for Joe. I was certainly not capable of understanding all that happened that day and night when I was 10. What I did understand was my brother was dedicated, gracious, inspiring, caring, and touching so many people. I cannot think of a more deserving man for this ceremony today. All of the sacrifices Joe made, and all the posters on the ceiling above his bed, and all of the running at the break of day, and all of the meals missed to make weight, all of it not only shaped Joe, it shaped our family, it shaped our town, it shaped our high school, and it's helped shape Mifflin County. Joe went on to become a great husband, father, stepbrother, and very successful businessman. I want to join all of you in saying, congratulations, Joseph E. Heller Jr., on your induction into the Hall of Fame. I love you.
So that's where my journey began. I started to wrestle when I was about 8 in the old Burnham wall, before any additions, when you had to walk up the brick steps in the front. And we wrestled in the basement of the Y with 6-foot ceilings on mats covered with plastic. Oh, but what a team. What a team that was. With just super wrestlers like my brother Tom, Kenny Weitzel, Tim Noor, Ronnie Royer, Stevie Marks, Frankie Britton, Davey and Timmy Brown, Donnie Adams, Scotty Tate, and some I'm sure I missed. The one thing I know is there were a bunch of wins walking around that room, even at that age. The coaches of the elementary Y were 3 gentlemen: Kerm Weitzel, Artie Purcell from Burnham, Don Tate from Yandertown, showed us the basics and in and out. And I walked out of that Y with 2 lessons. One, it's been touched on a bunch here tonight, is I hated to lose. Didn't dislike it, hated it. The second was, every time you step on that mat, you better be ready to bring your best and bring it quick. And I'll give you a little story of how I learned. In my first YMCA match, I was 60 pounds. Walked over in my little leotard, Kerm Weitzel sitting in the corner. And I thought, boy, what's he going to tell me? This is going to be great. He didn't tell me anything. He held my face in his hands and went, I hope you're ready to go. See you later. Well, I lost. My face hurt. But we'll get back to that point a little later. So from there, I moved on to junior high. And 4 things happened in junior high that really influenced me. And one did not. First of all, in 7th grade history class, Charlie Roselle was the teacher. It's the first time I ever met Charlie. He was just kind of this guy that coached high school wrestling to me. And when they did attendance in those days, they called your name. Before he called my name, he just sung the song, Would You Like to Swing on a Star? And then I was called into attendance. So that's my introduction to Charlie Roselle. My second influence in that time frame was Ron Sprecker. Yeah, Ron just didn't coach cross country. He was a junior high wrestling coach. And Ron took me from being a good wrestler to being a damn good wrestler. And he did it with one line. Hey, Joe, come on over here. I want to start to show you this series of moves. And very methodically, I learned how to fireman's carry. Then I learned how to barrel roll. And then I learned how to dunk. And then I learned how to cross-leg single. And I learned a devastating bar arm series from Ron Sprecker. I'll tell you what, over the next 5 years of my career, I dumped everybody in the state and I pounded them on top. So, Ron Sprecker. The next influence in my life, because I still lack something, right? I wasn't pressed in the top. I lacked a grittiness, a toughness, a willingness to stand in there and take the pain, give the pain out, and do whatever it takes to win it. But I had a solution coming. Didn't know it, but I had one. And that kid walked in the door. We were about 5-10 pounds apart then. He was in 7th grade and I was in 8th grade. And that kid was Louis Copenhagen. We beat the heck out of one another for 2 years solid. Didn't give an ounce. Blood out the nose. Didn't matter. But we made one another tough. And Louis Copenhagen is the one that taught me to never yield. Never yield. Always be tough. So those were some of the things why I won my matches. For those 3 things. The thing that did not happen to me in junior high is I didn't grow. Here's this kid, all this talent, pounding his way up through the unemployment. He's 20 pounds shy of the lightest weight class. So when I entered my sophomore year, well, the summer before I entered my sophomore year, Charlie Roselle and my parents got together and corked up the miracle potion. Vanilla milkshakes, peanut butter, protein mix, jam a banana in that quart milk, and Joe drink one of these every 6 hours. You'll get there. You're going to put this weight on. I can tell you, I went on for about a day. I was off the wagon. That did not work. So, I entered my sophomore year. I wrestled. I weighed 85 pounds. I wrestled 98. I lost, and I got beat a lot. And I hated every minute of it. But what also happened is I learned how to eliminate mistakes. I learned how to win on tight margins. I learned how to score on the edge of the mat. I was learning the whole time. My sophomore year, I was the 7th seed in the section. 14. The 14th seed in a district of 32. I placed 2nd in the district. Went on and advanced. I placed 3rd in the region, 20 pounds lighter than anybody else. Went to the state tournament. When I lost, Charlie Roselle looked at me and said, "Hey, you want to go have a Coke?" I said, "You bet. Let's go." So, in my personal opinion, it wasn't 2 state titles that was my best performance year. It happened in my sophomore year. So, now I come into my junior and senior year. I lost only 1 time either of those years. I was a legit weight guy. Actually grew a little weight my senior year. I lost 1 time. I blew a 10-2 lead. Made a mistake. Broke my code of rules. Didn't play it tight. Just got beat. Lost in overtime. Learned from that. The next week, I want to stay tight. You know what Charlie said? You want to go have a Coke? Okay. So my senior year, I benched my only loss on my junior year. Took a kid down in the regional finals with a dunk for Ron Sprecker showed me. Held him on his back for 50 seconds. Tell you the truth, I put my hand under his shoulder blade so it couldn't be pinned. Because I couldn't get him flat. We wrestled hard. So, I wrestled the state tournament, and the match before mine in the finals is going into overtime. I'm sitting on the edge of the mat, and Charlie Roselle sings to me, "Climb every mountain." It was also, you know, we were like the Sound of Music Festival. I was trying to get my head near one. But after the match, you know what he said? "Want to have a Coke?" I said, "Yep." So, here's the take. I scored 3 points, and I won 2 state titles. It was built on awareness that I learned at the Burnham YMCA in the basement. A series of moves which Ron Sprecker showed me. And a toughness that Louis Copenhagen helped me develop. So I think what I'm trying to say is that I was influenced by a lot of good people and a great family. Some of those folks are here today, and some are not. But I want them all to know how much I appreciated what they did for me. And as my closing thought, a lot of guys would ask after this presentation, "Well, Joe, what did Bob Torok teach you?" He was the assistant coach all those years. Well, Bob Torok showed me something, how to be competitive and calm and operate while you're under a lot of pressure. And he also taught me to fly fish. I don't roll around on the mats anymore, but I still cast a fly. I think that says a lot about ball. Thank you for this one.
Next on our list, a gentleman who was a presenter last year. We mentioned we were pretty sure he would be back in a different capacity. This year it's his turn. People who ask, you know, why do we have the Hall of Fame? Well, I think this is a good example for me. Junior, you know, I didn't know about Junior Powell. I didn't know the stories that I heard at our meetings about Junior. And the words that I remember from the discussions were, this guy might be the best athlete we've ever had. He could do anything. And I think you'll see that he did do just about everything. Our video now for Harold Junior Powell.
Junior Powell was a key member of the Lewistown football teams that went 26-2 over his 3 varsity seasons, including back-to-back undefeated teams in 1957 and 1958, which earned him All-State honorable mention for the Maroon and Steel. After graduation, Junior went to Penn State, where he earned 3 letters under head coach Rip Engel, while starting at cornerback, offensive halfback, and punt returner. Powell is still in Penn State's record books for career interceptions. More than his stats, however, this article from Sports Illustrated back in 1962, after a win over Navy, says it best. And I quote, "Penn State is led by 2 giants, Chuck Szymanski and Dave Robinson. But the team pet is a little man, Junior Powell, a 165-pound halfback. A couple of years ago, Powell was racing someone in the gym with such enthusiasm that he crashed into the wall and broke his jaw. Coach Engel jokingly stated, 'All my life I've been looking for a running back who could run through a brick wall.' Navy was no brick wall, but he ran through them anyway for 2 touchdowns. Showing his versatility at Penn State, Junior won an intramural boxing title and also competed as a long jumper on the Nittany Lion track team. Years later, he would excel at both handball and racquetball on a national level. Tonight, the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Harold Junior Powell.
Here to induct Junior into the Hall of Fame tonight, a good friend of his, Mr. Ed Parks.
thanks for having me. I'm going to do it off by saying this. He played for the Lewistown High School Panthers. Their colors were red and steel. And you're the Panthers. You can't take that away from it. He wanted to play for Rick Bingle at Penn State. Rick Bingle called him pound for pound the best man he ever coached. I was looking in the book tonight and saw the all-decade team. I saw Gingrich, I saw Ralph Baker, I saw Pete Lisk, I saw Roger Kaufman, and I saw Junior. Junior proceeded to go on to the North-South game. I'm going to let you tell you this story. It is so comical. But he also played for Lewistown High School. That green backfield known as the Jets had good blockers in front, like Ralph, Jeff Price, and some other boys. But they are Lewistown Panthers. He also went on to play again in pro football in Canada. I don't know how long he played in Canada. But on that all-decade team at Penn State, that's a hell of a group to play with. Dick Gingrich, Ralph Baker, Pete Lisk, Roger Kaufman, and the great Dave Robinson who played for the Green Bay Packers. Now back to Lewistown High School. His running mate is in the nursing home. And my wife talks to him. He said, say this and get the hell out. Junior returned a kickoff 98 yards for a touchdown. And his running back blocked for him. He got up and beat Junior down the field. You got to understand this now. Junior is the fastest man in the team. He asked Junior coming off the field, how did I beat you here? He said, well, the only reason why you beat me here, I slowed down so you could catch up. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't like to make speeches, but tonight, we are maroon and steel, the Lewistown Panthers. My friend from the Hill, Junior.
Well, that was a better entrance, if I say so myself, than whenever I come up here for Cindy. I don't know if you remember, I jumped in ahead of the video. Everybody, one of the classic byline is, boy, they're tough acts to follow. But I mean, everybody that's been before me here, they must have gone to Toastmasters International. I thought they all did a darn good job. This is going to be a rather dry presentation, again, comparatively speaking. I first talk about my parents. My dad, very supportive, worked at the disco. Every time that he wasn't working shift work and could get home to practice me, he would. And he didn't demand it, he just enjoyed it. I think part of that was he wasn't a very successful athlete, not because he wasn't coordinated, but he was very small, but he was quick. My mother, and I think this is a blessing, sometimes nowadays especially, we get stage mothers, and my mom sort of could have cared less about football. The only time she would be concerned if she felt some coach was giving me the shaft or what have you. I will say this then, after I got into more organized sports in junior high school, and then Dad wasn't involved other than coaching me in baseball, church league, and prior to that, Little League. We didn't practice hardly at all, but I do remember this. If his shift work permitted, he never missed a football practice. Now, there were also around 20 other fathers who would go over there to the fairgrounds, and even then, I thought it strange, and even looking back nowadays, I thought it was a little weird. I mean, for guys, they get off work, instead of going home and maybe relaxing, they go over there and watch kids practice football. Again, television wasn't that popular then, maybe that contributed to it. I wish I could speak contemporaneously, but I need notes. My present family has, in my mind, just the right balance of sports interest and other interests. My wife did a little bit of cheerleading in high school, but has overall little interest in knowledge in sports. She's a 90th percentile singer, an organ and piano player, and the church is her prime interest, which is the right perspective in my mind. My daughter Tracy had little interest in sports, but she did play, and she was a solid tennis player and track athlete. She was a career stenographer and court reporter, and is presently a magisterial district judge in Gingrich County. My boy Wolf was very interested in sports. He was a solid tennis player and better than average baseball catcher and hitter. He's presently a major in the Marine Corps with 13 years of service. My environment, briefly, I grew up in Visco Hill, which I'm pretty darn proud of, and you all know about the Visco Hill. We had our own little, at the time, again, you probably don't realize it, but when that was built by the Viscos, everybody that worked there, not everybody worked there, but everybody that lived there had to work in the Viscos. And everybody could walk to work. If you know where it's located, you just go right down to the railroad tracks, go under the viaduct, and you're there. And I remember in the early 50s, there were probably, when we first moved up there, was probably only one car for every 5 homes. So we did a lot of carpooling in that, especially for Little League baseball. I call it an innocuous ghetto up there. We didn't have our mean streaks. We had some real characters. And one of the stories I remember, this is in around 1952, they formed a civic association. And one of the first projects they had was an Easter egg hunt. And my dad was on the civic committee, but I knew all the ins and outs of their plans. And they went around 10 o'clock at night, this was on a Friday evening, and put the eggs over at Shades Field. All right, I think there were 1,000 eggs. The next morning, I think the hunt began at 9 o'clock. And of course, they had different age categories. But when all the seekers, i.e. the kids, brought in their eggs, there were only 39 eggs. and this is where our kids up on the hill, as I said, it wasn't a mean street, but we had some mean kids. So they never did get to the bottom of it. And the next week they did have another Easter egg hunt. And it's a true story. And to this day, I often think there are probably still some people cowering up there, the ones that, the culprits that were living, just wondering if the statute of limitations. And another title we could give to this story, you know, there's a story, the Grinch that stole Christmas. Well, we had Grinches that stole Easter. Back to my football career. 10th grade, we were 8-2. Only losses were Tyrone and Huntington. And what, to me, one of the most significant things, at 14 years of age, one of my teammates, Gary Sprout, was all Central Counties as a fullback. He had like 600 yards rushing, a 5.5 yard per carry. You think about that. That's impressive for a 14-year-old kid. And Gary wasn't huge. At the time, he was probably 165 pounds, my height. The next year, 11th grade, we were 9-0, and one game was canceled because of a bad outbreak of influenza. Two of my teammates from that team are here, Harry Saxon and Barry Stuck. And we averaged 33 points a game. Fred Stoischer was third team All-State. There were only 2 touchdowns scored against us. One was by Tyrone, who was really good that year, and the next one was by Huntington, which was on the very last play of the game. And I think that's pretty impressive when you have a team that was only scored upon once. And another interesting thing, our quarterback was Abe Blackey. And prior to that season, we were counting on a young man by the name of Bryson Goss. You may know him. He was of the Goss Cantor family. But his dad shipped him off to a prep school in Maryland, so we were without a quarterback. So Mr. FEMA went and solicited somebody to be quarterback. He didn't want to mess with Fred Stoischer and I and Gary because he wanted to be the fullback and the halfbacks. So nevertheless, he asked Leo Curry, a lot of you might know Leo, and he asked Gary Sisersky if they would come out for quarterback, and they were more into basketball. So finally he asked Abe, and Abe volunteered, and he led us to 2 straight undefeated seasons. Then our 12th grade team, and I'm very proud of this team, and to this day I think statistically we'd have to at least be top 10 in the state all the time. No offense, we averaged 45 points a game. The entire starting backfield, excluding Abe, the quarterback, averaged 11 plus yards per carry. And a touchdown, we scored a touchdown offensively, every 7 plays. And when you think about that, pretty darn impressive. Fred Stoischer was unanimous All-State halfback. He averaged 14.7 yards a carry, which at the time and for 50 years was a state record. And I think 5 years ago, some young man from out around Leadville broke it. Our fullback and our 2 halfbacks were first team all Central Counties. Of the players on that team, 7 eventually got full rides to Division I schools. And we had 2 other players, Johnny Henderson and Jeff Brown, went to the University of Maryland on partial wrestling scholarships. And then, interestingly, some of my other classmates that year, Bob Smith, Sam Bossert, and Ron Monder, hopefully Hayden would, those names may ring a bell with you. They went to the University of Maryland on partial rides, and all 3 of them turned out to be ACC, 2-time ACC champs. The other kids that went Division I were Fred Stoischer. He had 30 offers from Division I schools. He wound up going to the University of Pennsylvania and then transferred to West Point. Then we had Gary Sprout went to Colorado on a full ride, University of Colorado. I went over to school, Penn State, and Ralph went to Penn State. Jack Gates-Shear went to Iowa. Bill Swineford to Bucknell, and Johnny Henderson down to the University of Maryland on a wrestling scholarship, as I said. 3 of them turned out to be or football players to be captains of their teams. Tom Brown, that Lenore Rhine, and of course Ralph at Penn State, and Bill Swineford at Bucknell. Now, I'm going to be selfish here and toot my own horn, but in college I started 3 years at Penn State as a running back, cornerback, and punt returner. Our record was 24-8-0. We won one Gator Bowl game, lost one. And that's left a bitter taste in my mouth, which I won't go into now. We were ranked number 7 1 year and 17 2 years in a row. When I graduated from school, I had most of the general career receiving and interception records, and still rank in the top 10 when you consider catches and yards per catch. I had all the receiving records for running backs and still have them, except for one, which Birch broke a couple of years ago. Now, I know I'm self-promoting, and that bothers me a little, but I think this is something that will give Mifflin County some time, as a topic of conversation, to maybe name drop a lot and say, well, we had some kids that did a decent job over at Penn State as well. And on the interception list, when I get out of there, I was the leader with 10. With 12. And little known fact, I still have an interception record, hold the record for picks per passes. Out of every 25 passes, I made a pick. Now, and again, I never really, I accepted I was very proud of my statistics when I graduated and up till I got nominated for the Hall of Fame, and it got me doing some research. And I just assumed all the other kids over at school and at other schools, had better stats than me. And then I realized that I only played half the time that they did, and I'll tell you why. That during the 3 years I played, NCAA rules had it set up that you had to play one team a half a quarter, 7.5 minutes. When that rolled around, you got to sub the second team, starting team with them. So you do the math, and then also you had to play both ways. So when you do the math, I was only playing half as much as the average person. Then when specialization came with Dick, those people got to play a full half game at their position. I'm losing track of my numbers here. Now, just some comments in general. I'm so against the celebrations, this swagger thing. You either have swagger or you don't. You don't manufacture it. I'm not saying I have swagger, but I think of the wrestler, I don't think you're a swagger. Well, you probably have a knack. Well, I never forget the one year that good Hall kid from Penn State, he won the national. I think he was a sophomore. And after he wins, he gets there and goes, look at me, world. And that was so disgusting. It was. And the next year, I got the day, I shouldn't have, it was one of my Penn State classmates, again, the Hall kid. That kid Valencia from Arizona State did a number on him, and I didn't see Hall giving this action. Best football player ever come out of Mifflin County was Gary Spratt. He was the best blocker, tackler, and runner. Now, he might not have been number one in each of those categories, but overall, he was solid. Best athlete ever to come come out of Mifflin County was Fred Storch. And if there ever was a pure thoroughbred, it was Fred. And if you know him, he's strange. I'm not saying that. To me, that's when you look at a thoroughbred racer, what kind of reputation does it have? They're unpredictable, no, you can't trust them, although you can trust Fred. But anyhow, I make that comment about him. And also at this time, he's in big medical trouble. He just about had to have his foot amputated. So if anybody can give him some kind words, it would be greatly appreciated. Best coaches I ever had, Robert McNeilis, you might remember him. He really did a great job with wrestling here. At Lewistown, up to the time he came, which was around 1956, I believe, they were a doormat in wrestling. In 4 years, he turned them into the mythical or unofficial District 6 wrestling champions, team champions. And back then, an argument could be made that District 6 wrestling in Pennsylvania was the best wrestling district in the nation, not just the state. Every year, there were a couple kids come out of District 6, Clearfield, Lock Haven, State College, or whatever, that were NCAA champions. Of course, Mr. Yafima, it goes without saying how good a coach he was. Little known fact, though, was how good a basketball coach he was at the same time. I think his he had like a Mountain League championship every other year. And his assistant, Joseph Chicatino, was right up there with him as far as, success. 1957 through 61, I think by far were the golden years of Mifflin County sports. Because during that time, we had 4 undefeated football teams in that 5-year span, and perhaps more impressively, 20 athletes in various sports got full or partial rides in D1 schools. Nowadays, it's major news if some youngster gets to be put on the roster, makes a commitment to, you know where. My coaches, Rep. Dangle, he was a college Hall of Famer, and I just became aware of this, that Eddie made the comment that Mr. Engel, way back when, and I never knew this till like 2 months ago, he made the comment that I, pound for pound, was the best athlete he ever coached. That just knocked me over. And surprisingly, I always thought he was rather ambivalent towards me. I didn't think he had that high of regard for me, so I'll carry that to my grave. Now we'll talk about Coach Joe Paterno, of course, College Football Hall of Fame. I didn't like him, and he didn't like me. I'm not proud to say that. He came back to me after I got out of school. He was against wasting a scholarship on me whenever Mr. Engel did take me on board over at State. We had a serious confrontation at the California game in my junior year. And I mean it's big time serious. He was contemptible. His nickname was Joe the Rat. No, it was. I didn't give it. You asked Ralph. Things like that made me all the more appreciative of Mr. Engel's comments. And I wasn't going to mention this, but I think I will. they really promote that. I don't know if you remember, but we roomed together when I was a senior. And I was on the red team, and that bugged me, that was the second starting team. So I went to Mr. Ring, I wanted to develop an esprit de corps. And at the time, Ohio State was the first school I remember that come out with the emblems on the helmets, the Buckeyes. Well, I got the bright idea, if nothing else, I asked Mr. Engel if we could put red balls on the helmets of the second starting team. Do you remember this at all? Now, Mr. Engel said, well, go to Mel Franks and see if we'll do it. All right. So I went to Mel Franks. He was our equipment manager over there. And Mel said, hell no, I'm not doing it. He said, I don't mean after every game we have to replace those patches or whatever. So if anybody, wants to know the real reason why we don't have the decorations on the helmets, it was Mel Frank was too lazy to do it. And finally, I'm going to wax religious a little bit. I believe in God and that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And I disagree with a lot of things that are going on in our country. But nothing is so bad as abortion. And I may offend somebody, but I'm not being apologetic. And if anybody ever comes down to my house and parades around it, saying how they're in control of their own body and have one of those vulva caps on, I'm going to be very tempted to give them a load of, not buckshot, rock salt in the arse. I again revisit Mr. Engel's pound for pound comment, and I cannot think of any other greater comment other than when I asked my wife Kay to marry me, and her response was, I may get a little choked up there, pardon me. I may as well. I can't think of anything better to do at the moment.
Well, who wants to follow that? Our final individual inductee tonight, of course, you've heard him mentioned by several people, and in fact, we found out he's responsible for Joe's state championships, and we didn't even mention Spreck in this video about his wrestling. I do just want to say this. I had the privilege to work with Ron towards the middle of my career. He was the athletic director and I was the assistant AD, and truly learned more from him about coaching than I think anybody I've ever sat with. Just, he was way ahead of his time with things. He had his runners meditating and thought the psychological side of racing just way ahead of his time. And I'll tell you this, nobody knows behind the scenes, he cared about kids. Ron Sprecker loves kids. Here's his video, Mr. Ron Sprecker.
Since his arrival in Mifflin County, Ron Sprecker has been the face of cross country and track and field. For the past 54 years, Spreck has dedicated himself to coaching and promoting the sports he loves. His coaching style is one of a kind. Just ask any of the athletes and coaches that he's worked with. He spent most of his younger years developing his values and work ethic at the Milton Hershey School for Boys before moving to Waynesboro High School for his senior year. After 4 years at Lock Haven University, his first teaching job landed him at Roth Rock High School in 1968, where his Eagle Runners won a District 6 title. Spreck later moved to Chief Logan and turned the Mingos into a force to be reckoned with. And when Chief Logan and Kish High School merged to form Indian Valley, the winning continued. In all, Spreck's troops reeled off a combined 28 boys and girls District 6 cross-country and track and field team championships, and literally too many individual boys and girls district champions to count. Ron also coached several individual All-State student athletes and state champions, and one coveted team state title back in 1986 when the Chief Logan girls brought home gold medals in cross-country. After retiring, Spreck didn't stop. In fact, he currently volunteers his time coaching youngsters in the Juniata Valley Striders AAU program. The Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame welcomes Ron Sprecker.
Again, I could tell you a bunch of stuff about Spreck. I could tell you some great stories, but I can't, again, because I just can't say enough. But I can't say enough about what a great friend he is and mentor. And I know that our presenter here was so honored when he asked her to speak tonight. Please welcome one of his former athletes and a great Chief Logan athlete herself, Ms. Tona Williams.
Thanks, Roger. You're right. I mean, stepping into this facility tonight before all the festivities began, it became pretty clear that everybody has a Spreck story. Everybody. And probably more than one Spreck story. And even opponents from the other schools that we ran have Spreck stories. Just ask Cher Ryder, Cher Harster, ask my husband, ask anybody that ran against Chief Logan or Indian Valley or Roth Rock, they have a Spreck story. And it's really wonderful to see Don Spangler here tonight, one of Spreck's rivals, so to speak, across the county, another coaching legend. He coached Cher and my husband at Lewistown High School, and it's wonderful to see him tonight to share in the festivities. And I, by no means, the best or most accomplished athlete that Spreck coached. I mean, Wendy's inducted here tonight, Jeff Miller's here tonight, Joe Heller's here tonight. He coached so many people and touched so many lives. But I think I am fairly representative of the type of person that Spreck changed our lives, and for the better. So if you put a number of his athletes in a room, I'm pretty sure that the names change, but the stories stay the same. And they're kind of fill-in-the-blank type things, where you could say, do you remember that time where we were, I don't know, dropped off in the middle of nowhere and we're told to run back to the school? Or do you remember the time when we're just kind of going along and suddenly Spreck jumps out of the bushes with a stopwatch and encourages us to perhaps run a little more quickly? I mean, I learned my geography of Mifflin County on Spreck runs. I learned Newtown Firehouse, Red Rock Road, Stewart's Restaurant, the first bridge in Yagertown, only to be topped by the second bridge in Yagertown, Big Ridge, or the dreaded Klondike. No matter how many times I ran Klondike, it never got any easier. These runs, along with Spreck's other sometimes interesting practices and morning regimens, would be performed at sometimes 5:30, 6 a.m. before school. We had double practices long before it was expected at the college level or in other places. Spreck, as Roger said, was way ahead of his time. And his practices and his regimens prepared us not only for what was to come on the track or in the field, but also in life. And for that, we thank him. He taught us the bus waits for no one. If the bus is going to leave at 7:30 a.m., the bus left at 7:30 a.m., whether the best athlete on the team was on it or not. Yet that same man, I watched him go to an athlete's house, knock on the door, and take him to the bus, to the high school, because he didn't have a way to get to the high school on a Saturday. He taught us compassion. That act in itself taught us compassion while still holding us all to a very high standard. He taught us to give our best every day, not just on race day. Now, I don't know, Wendy, I'm pretty sure you were involved in one of these, but I spent 8 seasons with Spreck, and at least 8 times I got thrown out of practice. Go home. Go. And don't come back until you have your head screwed on straight and you are ready to compete at the level at which is expected for practice. And while that may sound harsh, Spreck was right. And even then we knew he was right, because instead of going home like he told us to, we went and ran another 6 miles. And probably ended up doing more of that practice than he had originally intended. He taught us how to fall, literally taught us how to fall. Spreck, I don't know if you remember this or not, but the forecast was, it was supposed to rain buckets, so we had a meet the next day at Altoona, and we had a chance to win. We, little old Chief Logan, had a chance to beat Altoona in cross country. It was supposed to rain, and their course, it was at Altoona, their course was over the hill and through the woods, literally through the woods. A fairly high percentage chance that we might fall. So Spreck taught us how to fall. Literally, we spent the entire practice learning how to fall, putting our arm up, tucking our head, rolling, and coming up without missing a stride. Now, I'm thankful that I did not fall the next day. But believe it or not, I did put his lesson to use many years later. Just a few years ago, I was refereeing basketball. I may have been with Stevie Sear, refereeing basketball at Juniata College. There's a breakaway, I'm the lead official, I'm running down the court, and like a good official, I'm looking back at the play so I can see what's going on. Unbeknownst to me, there's a small child in the front row with a toy. The toy ends up on the court. I don't see this because I'm watching the play. And so I'm running, and before I know it, I'm going down. And I'm going, there's no catching it, there's no saving it, I'm going down. And in the midst of this going down, the lesson from 35 years prior kicks in. My arm goes up, I tuck my head, I roll, and I come up without missing a stride. What's really funny is the coach is actually a friend of mine, Danny. She sees me like 2 weeks later, she's like, Tom, I just gotta tell you, you were the highlight of our film session. And remarkably, they weren't laughing at me. She's like, how did you do that? How did you, like, you just went down, but then you were up? And I'm like, believe it or not, my cross-country coach taught me that. I don't even know how I remembered it, but I did, and I didn't miss a beat. And for that, I thank him. Spreck taught us about rivalry. Us versus them. I don't even know who the them was half the time, but he taught us versus them. It was Lewistown, it was Indian Valley, it was Kish, it was Rose Rock, it was Altoona, it was Perkiomen Valley, it was Bellwood Annis, it was all of them versus us. He taught us to embrace the role of the underdog, but be humble and not too confident when we were supposed to win. He taught us how to compete. And so we are here tonight, and if there's one person above the rest that would say that this is all unnecessary, we don't need to do this. I don't know why you all are here. It would be Spreck. And while he may be right, that his athletes' achievements are his athletes' achievements, we are the ones who ran the times, threw the javelins, cleared the heights. And we could have done it perhaps without him. We had the innate ability to do it. We did it. I would argue that we would not have done it without him. And so for that, Spreck, that is why we honor you here tonight, and we say thank you.
I'd like to thank the Mifflin County Hall of Fame. I'd like to thank everybody in attendance and thank those who gave me this honor that I feel honored but humble. It's very difficult accepting that I'm part of this group, a group that I highly respect. You know, I respect Gingrich Powell. He did some legal work for me, and it was impressive. I knew all about his Penn State career, and Dick Gingrich did legal work. Unfortunately, I'm not going to thank him because I made a mistake. Not with Dick, but that house was a mess. And I'd also say special thanks to my wife, who has supported me. I have to follow all these outstanding athletes. I was the boy from a family of extremely talented athletes and extremely brilliant. Magna cum laude, MIT, magna cum laude, Penn, magna cum laude, Georgetown, magna cum laude, John Hopkins. That's what I grew up. I was adopted, so it's not genetic. Quite a few good athletes. The majority of my cousins are first team all-conference. They're outstanding academic, and then I came along. Basketball is big down here. I mean, soccer is big down here. Baseball is big down here. 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. I got cut. I never made one team. I was the bottom of the family. The only thing I ever achieved was I got another plaque. That plaque was Fairview Avenue School. Back then, Junior probably approves of this. They didn't fool around in school. When you were bad, you stood up like this in front of the class, looked back, and they pounded you. Well, my plaque was number 1. I received more paddlings than any other student. And then the school burned down. Thankfully, Milton Hershey, I got cut in 9th grade in basketball. That was the final cut, because at Milton Hershey, once you were cut, you were cut. The team was formed in 9th grade. There were no more tryouts. I came down the steps with Bobby Fears and Tommy Murray, and there was a guy at the bottom of the steps. It was a wrestling coach. And he said, "Hey guys, I know you get cut. Tell you what, come on into this room. I can't promise you you're going to be a great wrestler." He said, "But I will promise you this. I'll coach with everything I have. I will never give up on you, and I will never get cut." I thought it was pro wrestling. My dad's roommate in college ended up a pro wrestler. And I went backstage over at Hagerstown at the fair to meet him after he was covered in blood and this guy beat him. The guy stood up, Nazi salute, Heil Hitler. That was after the war. I mean, I thought that's what I was going to do, but if this guy ain't cut me, I'll take it out. My life turned around from that point. And I got in track and field because the wrestling coach, he knew I was a hog, and I ate anything that was in front of me. And he wanted to keep my weight, Murray's weight, and Fear's weight, and Matty Klein. He wanted them separated next year. So he said, you will go out for track. What? We just come back from national preps. And I said, I'm not going out for track. He said, yes, you are. I said, I like to milk cows. But I went out for track, and that's where my athletic career really started. I don't hold a candle to anyone in this room athletically. Now, my message is teamwork. I don't think I've accomplished anything. I have been blessed to have support. I mentioned my wife. She did so many things to help me as a coach. And I was blessed with kids. You've seen some of them. I'm not about win-loss records, you know. Do I like to compete? Yeah. My kids will tell you, I don't like to lose. But I was more interested in kids. I know what coaches did for me. I hate to think of where I was headed, but sports turned me around. And I just want to mention a few coaches. One was Father Martin. Father Martin was brilliant. Those of you who know track, this guy coached over 50 kids that ran sub 2 in the half mile. He coached us to the National AU 2-mile relay championship. Dave Patrick, Olympian, was on that team. Steve Costigan, Maryland State champ, was on that team. Zeke Wallace was on that team. He ended up runner-up in the state of Maryland. Guy was brilliant. He taught me, identify your gifts. It takes time. It's not easy. You got to look at what you're gifted at. Once you know what you're gifted at, develop those gifts. And that is going to be a lot of hard work. I don't care how good you are. You've got to work at it. Everybody that came up here, they were workers. They did the extra. And you've got to work hard. I don't care if it's academic. I don't care if it's athletic. I don't care if it's your job out of standard steel. If you really want to get good, you have to work and work hard. You have to outwork the other person. And then use your gifts. Use them for your own benefit and the benefit of others. And finally, Father Martin said, I think this is a quote from John Kennedy, to whom much is given, much is expected. And he would work you. I can remember literally having my legs buckle after a workout, and I could not get up. It took me half an hour to get up to the high school. Then I called my mother up on the phone. I said, Mom, I can't get home. Mother says, you have 2 legs. You're a runner. It took me almost an hour to get home. But the work paid off. The guy was really, really good. The second one I want to acknowledge is my grandfather. And my grandfather always taught me, surround yourself with good people. My accomplishments are not my accomplishments. They are my assistant coaches. They are my kids. I went out and got good kids, and I'm still looking for good kids. My wife knows I'm after a little Hispanic kid that didn't have enough money to run the goose day race yesterday. Can't even speak very much English. I'm after that kid, because if that kid wants to run the goose day race that bad, and he doesn't have enough money, I know he's got a heart. I know if he works hard enough, you know, Mifflin County's going to have one in a couple of years. And the other thing grandfather taught me, my grandfather was really impressive. He really built a huge corporation. Everyone has talent that can benefit the team, and you've got to go out and look for that talent. Now, on collegiate level, in my opinion, the great coaches are the great recruiters. You've got to go out and find the talent, and you cannot be bigoted over someone's race, religion, their opinions. You've got to get everybody you can, and you've got to find a place for that person. Grandfather had one, what we call physically disabled man, and he spent a lot of time. They built a chair so he could get up. But once he got to the point where he could work, he became best machinist at Frick Company. He made him money. So I always try to incorporate, like this little Hispanic kid. I'm going after him. Now, I don't like to mention names, there's so many, but George Settle, I coached at Lewistown and Rothrock. George Settle ran. He was the most pathetic kid I ever saw in my life. The last race of his freshman year, he wouldn't quit. He was next to last place, and he kept driving. He fell into the cinders down Mitchell Field. Blood's coming out, it's pouring down rain. He keeps going, and the official's saying, "It's okay, you can quit, kid." Froth and well, George said to me, "I know it's going to Penn Hines." He said, "Coach, I want to be a part of that team. Don't cut me, because that's going to be a big score." I said, "George, I'm not going to cut you, but I said, if you want to be good," here's Klondike. I said, "George, we get together on Tuesday and Thursday, and we go to the mountains to run. Come with us. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you go from Catherine Street and run up Klondike, over Klondike, down the ridge, over Sand Ridge, and then you come back up and come back into Lewistown, your house." Well, he did it. State runner-up, all state, right cross country, senior year. Went away to Lock Haven, graduated, joined the Army, very successful. That's what I call winning. Those kids of mine that went out there and became doctors, became lawyers, became dentists, became teachers, became machinists, became skilled technicians. All those successful kids. To me, that's what it's all about. I couldn't even tell you how many meets I won or contests I won, you know, but when I look back at Wendy Booher and I look back at Joey Heller, Danny Hughes is here, Jeff Miller's here, yeah, Tona, that's what makes me life. And lastly, Coach Kovac, he's the one that really saved me. He always taught us that successful people fail far more often than unsuccessful people. Don't be afraid. Go out there and give it a shot. So you want to go to the history books and look at Winston Churchill. You want to look at Thomas Edison, and you go on and on and on. The great successful people fail and fail and fail. The difference is you knock them down, but you can't keep them from getting back up. And in athletics and sports, the fear of failure is the greatest problem that you have. And it was a lesson that I picked up. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. Just go for it. Again, I thank all of you, especially the Mifflin County Hall of Fame. I'm very humbled by this award. I'm very humbled to be among you all. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this time I'm going to ask our president, Timmy Sear, and vice president Brian Hecker to come forward. We are presenting for the first time a volunteer recognition awards here tonight. And I'm going to have these gentlemen step up and explain the process here to you. So, fellas.
Try and keep things moving along here. During the wrap up for this event, we thought that while it's great that we honor the athletes and the longtime coaches, we thought that we ought to look within our membership for a volunteer recognition award. Somebody who puts in the hours and the time in an athletic endeavor. And we have two men who have been members of the Hall since its initiation in the last 2 years. And I think it would be hard pressed to look around Mifflin County and find two other men who have devoted the number of years and the number of hours for free to benefit youth baseball, specifically Babe Ruth baseball, which has enjoyed tremendous success in our county. I think anybody who has had a son go through the Babe Ruth league, you look forward to getting that newspaper the next day and reading a little blurb in there, a little recap of every game, hearing about the tournament trail. And the guy responsible for that was Ray Wild. If you grew up in Belleville in the last half century, probably, you didn't run up to the field on top of the hill there in Belleville without having Bill Corbin on the coaching staff. So these two guys have played a volunteer role to benefit sports and have brought great recognition to our area. And the Hall of Fame, while it's not an induction into the Hall of Fame, it is certainly fitting that the Hall of Fame recognizes them. And we're pleased to present the Volunteer Recognition Award to Ray Wild and Bill Corbin.
I'd just like to thank the Hall for this award. I really think when I thought about it, I really wasn't sure. I'm not sure why I'm here because I have no athletic accomplishments like that on Ron Sprecker. In fact, the sport I'm most known for, baseball, I started 0 games in high school. That's hard to believe, and I also did coach football for 18 years. But I want to do this in honor of my parents. They made me the people, they are the people that made me the person I am. I think Dad, he coached Little League Baseball for about as long as I coached Pee Wee football, and he ran the community hall in Belleville for about as long as I've coached Babe Ruth baseball. And I think this is a great community to be a part of. I see our guest speaker today, Mr. Hidley, and I can remember when coaching his brothers, he was behind us cheering like crazy, and he was driving me crazy. So I thought he had to be driving the other teams crazy. Having coached both these guys, kids, Junior talked about his son being a pretty good baseball player. Yeah, I was a part of the first team that went to the World Series, the 16-year-olds. And Junior's son was not on the team because he was 16, but was playing with the 16 to 18-year-olds. They actually took him away from us. So it's really an honor, but I accept this for Bob and Pat Corbett. Thank you.
I guess you know who I am, Ray Wyatt. When I took the job in 1970 as a PR man for Babe Ruth, the real reason I took it, I wanted to get my foot in the door at the paper. As time went on, I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And the Babe Ruth legacy is well, I tried to make it the best I could, but I wanted to, when the kids came in from college, when they grew up, they would say, hey, you know, when we played Babe Ruth baseball in Mifflin County, it was fun. And it was a competitive, tough league. And I hope through the years we have accomplished that. We've done fairly well, 25 state champions, 6 teams to the World Series, and a national champion, 2 national runners-up. I guess I am fairly dedicated. I know. I'm going to tell you a little story. Last year, my mother passed away, and she died on a Saturday night. Excuse me. The next day, I had a Babe Ruth game. I had to go to Scranton, so I called the Undertaker in Scranton. I went there and missed the game. And I don't miss very many games at all. But Mother Wild always said, she said, I hope I don't die during the season. Unfortunately, she did. But I got through that, and 5 days later, I was on the way to San Antonio to another World Series. So I thank you for all, and 206 days we'll have another Babe Ruth season. So hopefully the Sentinel doesn't go out of business. I want to be there for all. Thank you for everything, and I hope all the children, all the men who have played Babe Ruth baseball through the years, I hope I spell your names right. Sometimes Elliot was a little hard. But other than that, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope to see you in the spring.
Okay, we come to our final award of this evening. Our team, a new team to be inducted. And this group, you can talk about records, you can talk about numbers, you can do all that stuff. They won this in 1963. I was born in 1962. So I can't say that I lived this, but I can tell you in researching about this team, the thing that I got from it is what this team meant to Mifflin County when it happened. And when you see one of the photos in this video about the people that gathered outside WKBA studios waiting for these kids to come back, wish I could have been there. But the last thing I want to say about them is this Rothrock state champion team, there'll be other state championship teams, and there have been. They can say, we were first. Here's your video for your Class C state champions from 1963.
The year was 1963. The Chiffons topped the charts with One Fine Day, and head coach Harold Wirtz and his Rothrock Eagles would give Mifflin County a day we would never forget. winning our first team state championship, defeating Jim Thorpe 43-41. To remember that day, here's the last 90 seconds of the radio broadcast by legendary Hall of Fame member Fran Fisher.
The path to this state final in Bethlehem for Rothrock High School has been an interesting one. What an understatement that is. And I'm certain that all of you, and I mean all of you, in Lewistown and McVeigh will join in the welcome home celebration to our champs, regardless of how this one comes out. Our champs be at the KVA studios, outside the studios, tomorrow at 3 o'clock, when there'll be a stop-off there on the way to the home of these champions, McVeigh, Pennsylvania. Mayor John Lawler will be there tomorrow, and Mr. Richard Bartholomew, the superintendent of schools, will be there. And here we go in the last 17 seconds with Jim Thorpe in possession. Jack Kometz comes up the middle, up over the 10-second line. Kometz passing in the corner to Morris. Morris passes. Oh, he's out of bounds. And Rothrock gets possession with 9 seconds. And Rothrock calls timeout. No, the officials called timeout. Now Rothrock gets the ball with 9 seconds remaining. It's 41-41. We have 8 seconds remaining. Here comes Freed. Freed to Allgaier. Allgaier jump shot from 20. Score! Score! The ball game's over! You'll not believe it! You'll not believe it! You'll not believe it! Jimmy Allgaier scored from 40 feet on a jump shot. We got the state champions! We got the state champions in McVeigh as Jimmy Allgaier hit on a 40-footer at the buzzer. And how sweet it is! How sweet it is!
We got the state champs in McVeigh all right, and tonight they take their rightful place in the Mifflin County Sports Hall of Fame.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are fortunate enough to have many of the members of the team. I think we have 8 total people here tonight. The first guy I'd like to call forward, the head coach of that team, is here with us tonight. Please welcome Coach Harold Wirtz. We're going to get Coach set up here real quick to talk to you for just a minute, and then we're going to announce the players that are here. One thing I do want to tell you about that video while we're getting Coach set up is we were fortunate enough to get the radio broadcast in its entirety. And then we got some video, but this was back in the day when somebody shot this with an 8mm hand-cranked Bell and Howell camera. So if you remember those days, you wound those things up and they would work for about 10 seconds. And then you'd have to wind them up again and shoot. So that's why you saw that little gap there between the ball going out of bounds and Fran Fisher trying to decide whose ball it was, as only Fran could do, and then coming back. And then, as I'm putting this video together, I thought, wow, this is really a great story. I had no idea all these guys on this team were left-handed. And I'm watching this video, and then I'm like, well, wait a second. Everybody on the other team is left-handed. So I realized that whoever transferred this film to video had it reversed. And it didn't say Rothrock. I can't actually pronounce what it did say. Rothrock, I don't know. But anyhow, we spent some time, got the video going the right way, and we're really, really proud that we did. Teddy, you want to give Coach the mic there a second? Coach, do you have anything you'd like to say about your squad?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank my family for coming, and my relatives. And I'd also, on behalf of the team, I'd like to thank the committee for inducting us into the Hall of Fame. We're greatly appreciate that. The thing I might mention that the team described it best was when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And they did real well. We always came behind, basically because I had them in shape. I made the grunt a lot because our gym was only 7 feet long. So we had to be in shape when we went to the gym was 84 feet long. But, so that's being in shape. We came several ball games, next 3 out of 5. So I run down that final fourth quarter in the championship game. We were ahead at halftime, 25-23. But we had a disastrous third quarter. The ball just went through the basket. And I scored 4 points. So now at midway through the fourth quarter, we're losing about 10 points. Well, somehow they tightened up the defense and started stealing the ball. We went down making layups. We scored 12 straight points on Jim Thorpe. Now we're leading 41-39. So, but they made a couple foul shots and tied it up 41-41. I told him at timeout we weren't going to go for the last shot. So we're holding the ball, but one of the players got called for travel. And there's only a few seconds left. And they threw the ball in, the second pass, they threw to a guy who was out of bounds. So we get the ball back with about 8 seconds to go. I don't know which player threw the pass to free pass to Jimmy Allgaier, and he made a 40-some shot, each shot, and it went through the basket. But just as the buzzer, and then Fran Fisher went down.
That could make it tonight. Again, just great memories for our community to share. Other members of the squad that are here this evening, team statistician Gail Hepler is here this evening. Now, in alphabetical order, the players that are with us here this evening, the guy that forever hit the big shot, Mr. Jim Allgaier is here.
Great athlete, really good. He even played baseball. He did play baseball, but I wonder whether he ever would like to play football and quarterback.
Next in alphabetical order, welcome Ron Freed.
Big, but he's a good player. It helps us to keep going together.
Next on our list, please welcome Bill Hutchinson.
He was one of the bench players. He's only as good as his bench.
I don't know if you heard that, but he said the team's only as good as its bench. How true. Next, please welcome Mr. John Kaufman.
Football player. He had no trouble with his arms, and the referees would sometimes call him for elbow. Anyway, in one of the ball games against England, he made
this evening, Mr. Gary Swartz.
He had a great game in a championship game. He shot to put the ball on the baseline. Very good kid. They're all good kids and good shots.
And my apologies, I went out of order here. I did miss someone here tonight. Please welcome Robert Lawver.
On the bench, like I said, you gotta have bench to play. To do good. I'm sorry, I know I'm getting old, but I know Bobby Bud once said it real well. Getting old is not for the sissies.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up one more time for the coach and your first state champion. All right, as we finish up those photos, I'm going to welcome back to the podium to wrap things up. Again, thanks for being here. Please welcome back, just some closing remarks, our president, Mr. Tim Sear.
Folks, real quickly, thank you all so much for coming. I do have a request. If you are not a member of the Hall of Fame, take a look at the application on the back. Become a member. Take part in the voting process for the next induction. We need members to support this, but I think we all had a wonderful time tonight. Congratulations